When you look at the history of the climate crisis, you can't help but shake your head. This is simply not a new issue. Humanity has had so many chances to avoid the kind of apocalyptic hellscapes of fireballs and ash clouds currently being seen across Turkey, Greece, China, and the US. The scientists of the world, together working at the IPCC, just released a new report, not that new when it comes to the main urgent conclusions. And that report that this time was mentioned by the Secretary General of the United Nations as Code Red for Humanity, which confirmed that without radical reductions in carbon emissions this decade, temperature rises above 1.5 degrees would be inevitable and irreversible. Right now, the planet is 1.1 degrees hotter than it was in the second half of the 19th century. This was a stark warning of what might happen if COP26 doesn't come through very serious commitments to radical and immediate action. COP26 also takes on a very special significance as the fifth summit since the Paris Agreement, which according to the treaty means all countries should have come with their updated NDCs. On the other hand, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has also presented the world with a weird, unique opportunity. Lockdown measures to contain the virus resulted in the largest global recession since World War II. And some countries are preparing to fight back with historic levels of public spending that will aim to get their economies, of course, back on track. That spending can either acknowledge the climate crisis through green investment, or it can be used to return to business as usual. So my expectation, and I know I speak on behalf of millions, if not billions of people, are that COP26 must be a turning point towards the real implementation of all of those actions needed to fulfill the goals of the Paris Agreement. It's not only about national government. The climate crisis requires all axes of society, all of them working together to have emissions by 2030 and build a resilient net zero future by 2050 at the very latest. As the United Nations high-level climate action champion with my dear friend and fellow champion Nigel Topping, we're calling all sectors of society to mobilize for a decade of action on three levels. Global action to secure greater leadership, more resources, and smarter solutions for the Sustainable Development Goals. Then local action, embedding the needed transitions in the policies, the budgets, institutions, and of course the regulatory frameworks of governments, cities, and local authorities. And then us, people, our individual action, including by youth, civil society, media, the private sector, unions, academia, and many other stakeholders, all of us to generate an unstoppable movement pushing for the required transformations. At COP26 in Glasgow, we will focus on four key themes. The first one, stretching the ambition of national targets to align with net zero goal by 2050. Of course, halving emissions by 2030. The second one, enabling and encouraging countries and communities affected by climate change to adapt and build resilience. The third one, mobilizing the required finance, making financial institutions commit to play a central role in unleashing the trillions that are required to solve this crisis. And the fourth, all working together to operationalize ambition and accelerate progress in what we call radical collaboration. Fundamentally, there is a need for a fair, equitable, and just transition for the people, country, and from a regional perspective. So my friends, from the telecom sector, the implications are so clear. The information and communication technology industry is taking an unprecedented step forward in tackling climate change with the release of the first ever science-based pathway to reduce greenhouse gas emissions across the telecom sector. A new science-based target for the industry includes emissions reduction trajectory for mobile, fixed and data center operation to meet the ambitious Paris Agreement goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees, designed to sustainably reduce the risk and effects of climate change. Now, 29 operator groups representing 30% of global mobile connection are already committed to science-based targets, and many more will now be able to set targets by applying the recommendation released by the science-based target. The Global System for Mobile Communication has launched a climate toolkit for operators, which includes company guidance for setting science-based targets. The science-based target sets emissions trajectory reduction over the decade, this decade from 2020 to 2030 for each ICT subsector. So for example, mobile network operators adopting SBT are required to reduce emissions by at least 30% over this period. The industry is also committed to advancing mobile technology innovations in areas such as big data and internet, IoT, that can enable energy efficient solutions across multiple sectors, including transport, agriculture, building, and energy. All of them. I mean, every sector of the world has the capacity of implementing the tools that your sector can deploy. The switch to renewable and low carbon electricity is expected to account for a bulk of reductions over this period, alongside efforts by operators to become more energy efficient. Access to renewable energy, which can vary widely, of course, depending on an operator's geography location, is therefore a key factor determining an operator's ability to meet SBT. The sector must crystallize that ambition in a detailed strategy, turn ambition into official commitment by joining Race to Zero, and turn those commitments into immediate actions. We have no more time to lose. The moment to join Race to Zero is now. And this will send a clear message to governments and regulators all around the world, putting pressure on them to establish the necessary regulatory framework and support that we all need. It will also demonstrate to the general public that the technology industry is intent on taking a leading role in the just, healthy, and resilient transition to a zero carbon world. My friends, thank you for listening. Hope that you can now understand that this is absolutely urgent and that the opportunity is massive. And I look forward to welcome all of you into the Race to Zero.